Nice to meet you, everyone. First of all, if I could answer all of those questions that he wasn't able to answer before about which parts of the CV I read, because I receive probably about, well, not quite 40, but definitely 20 CVs a week. And so I can relate to that position of kind of not being able to read them all, but I kind of know exactly what I'm looking for when I receive them, so I can help you there. As I'm not really the head of Ogilvy. That person is dead, David Ogilvy. No, I'm just a head of a small part of Ogilvy which is a very big organisation. I'm sure some of you are familiar with. I work within Ogilvy Public Relations, which is one of 10 Ogilvy companies in the UK. I can't remember the rest of them, but there's Ogilvy in advertising, Ogilvy One, Ogilvy Action, Ogilvy. Every other day there's a new Ogilvy, so it's an incredibly big, growing machine. And I work within Ogilvy PR and specifically head of digital in the UK. And for us, social and digital media has a nice logical fit within public relations because PR people tend to be quite strategic. We tend to be really good storytellers or liars, either way you want to see it, spin doctors. But we also really understand the importance of the message and communications as opposed to marketing. So our job is not to sell, but is to communicate. So we don't judge our campaigns based on how many sales our product has made. But we judge the success of a campaign on things like how we've managed to change people's perception of a brand, and that comes in social media from doing something very, very long term as opposed to a bright and fun campaign. So I thought I would just three things I want to cover. This is not a sales pitch. Don't worry, I'm not pitching to you like you're one of my clients, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of some of the things that we care about, and they are social business, content and conversation, and digital influence. And I'll explain these a little bit more in detail, but social business is really enterprise level social media. So how we can make social media right at the core of everything a company does. So not even things that are outwardly visible, but how they engage people inside, so their employee engagement communications, as well as just when they're planning all of their marketing communications to make sure that people understand digital and social. So it's right at the very heart of the organization. The second is around content and conversation, which is pretty self-explanatory. We all want something to talk about, that's content, and when we have good content, we have something to talk about. So a great deal of what we do is to understand what different kinds of people like to talk about. And I'll go through some of that. And the third is digital influence, which is how we can engage the most influential people to talk about our brand. So we don't pay people to write favorably about our brands. So the pressure is on for us to think of amazing, remarkable brand experiences that move people to want to write about us for free, although sometimes it can actually be very costly because of the cost of putting something together. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about specifically Facebook within this context. But to begin with, I won't bore you too long, but just a quick little CV of mine. I'm from Australia. I graduated a long time ago, according to Daniela, back in the 90s. I graduated in 1990. Sorry?
I did not say that.
I graduated in 1995. The Bachelor of Business, majoring in communications. During that time, I studied all sorts of things like film and television production and journalism. The internet wasn't really around much at the time. There was a few geeks kind of playing with various tools in different parts of the university, but it was definitely pre-internet when the internet was around, but I hadn't quite discovered it. When I left university, I worked for the Australian version of Rolling Stone magazine, which is a popular music magazine. Some people might recognize this from the States. And it was a really great time. It was the mid to late 90s, and my boss one day said to me, he could remember my interview, and back in those days when you did a job interview, you had like a portfolio, you had like this sort of pages and pages of your high school certificates and university certificates, and he recalled that I'd done a a course called Hands-on Internet at the local technical kind of polytechnical college. It was like a 2-day thing that I took myself to, and armed with that little bit of information, he asked if I would set up find a way to move the magazines, because we had Rolling Stone and about 20 other magazines. How could we move these magazines onto the internet? Because we knew that teenagers and young people in particular, which was our target audience, were already beginning to use this new medium. So in 1998, I was the executive producer of a youth news and entertainment portal called Network Next, and we had such innovations as live web chats with bands, and people could have their own little space where they could kind of record their favorite, keep track of their favorite music and whatnot. And there was a whole gaming platform to it as well. It was really exciting. But like most internet things around that time, as much money was quickly put in, was quickly pulled out, and we all went back to our previous jobs. And I decided to go traveling and actually moved to China, and in total lived in China for 10 years. In my first stint in China, I was heavily involved in blogging and set up a kind of a community of bloggers all over China. It was called Living in China, as a way to kind of aggregate all of our voices together and communicate with other big voices around the world who were beginning to appear online. We also created a way for Chinese people who wanted to blog but wanted to sort of circumnavigate the kind of official channels, so they could have a free channel to kind of express themselves. From there, I went for what was basically a one-year holiday, and I lived in Barcelona, and sort of spent half the day at the beach and the other half of the day working for a company called Softonic, which some of you may be familiar with as a download portal. So I set up the English language portal. But the lure of China was still there, and I went to work for Ogilvy PR, and specifically in Shanghai, where I set up our digital and social offering there called 360 Digital Influence. And in that time, I got to work on some really, really, really amazing campaigns. So the highlight would probably be working on the daily social media updates from the Olympic Games for Adidas, which was a lot of fun, and also doing Intel's first social media press release, which sounds pretty lo-fi now, but at the time I can assure you it was very stressful and very innovative. Also I lived in Shanghai during the World Expo, so we did a lot of nation branding things for Switzerland and Australia and Spain and a lot of other countries. So it was a really exciting time. And then 18 months ago, I moved to London to work for Daniela. To work for Daniela, really. And in the 18 months there, we've begun to work on some really great campaigns, and we have two Olympics clients of our own coming up. So 2012 promises to be a pretty big year. So here I am to talk about Facebook. And Facebook 2012 being a really, really important year. Does anyone know why? What's so great about 2012? Sorry? Well, that's possible. Anything else? The end of the world. Very good. Yes. And if it is the end of the world, there'll be 1 billion people who will know about it on Facebook, because it is predicted by August that 1 billion people, there'll be 1 billion members of Facebook, which is pretty incredible. And it's quite plausible, because the two big trends happening at the moment are Brazil and India sort of deserting Orkut, which has been their favorite social network for many years, and going to Facebook in droves. And both of those countries, even though they have relatively small social media penetration per population, they love social networking, they love mobile networking, especially in Brazil. So everyone's moving to Facebook. So 1 billion people are going to be there. And obviously Facebook loves to kind of promote this is their biggest sales tool, is this number. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk a lot about likes. And although we'd say that this isn't the only way we'd measure a campaign, it's not the best way to measure a campaign, but if Facebook can sell itself by the number of likes it has, then we can talk about the success of a campaign or page by likes as well. Of course, Daniela and I would kind of say, oh, there's many other things as well, like analytics and things that are just as important. But for many people, it's the vanity of having appearing in different ranks and different polls and different lists produced by Facebook that really matters. And I'm going to have a look at some of those pages that have the most number of likes, and share some personal information of mine. Danielle is always really keen to see what's inside my Facebook because I won't let her in. But so now she'll get to see a couple of things.